Hello, everyone. Welcome to AFC Stuff Tonight. I'm joined with Joe, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming match against Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League, should I say? It was a Premier League not so long ago with a draw against Manchester United. But Joe, how are you doing this evening? I'm sure you're pleased with that point that we caught Old Trafford not too long ago.
Well, I wouldn't say I was pleased, but under the circumstances of the game, firstly, I thought we were poor for the whole game. And to be honest, Ox and Giroud have dug us out of the deep end at the end. So I'd say I'm satisfied, but I wouldn't say I'm pleased. But hopefully we can put a better performance in against PSG, just onwards and upwards.
Yeah, you'd certainly hope so. I mean, going into that game against Man United at the weekend, there was a real feeling that this could be the time that we go to Old Trafford and break this whole hoodoo with Mourinho and Wenger. And it's been a decade since we won at Old Trafford now, and it was time to really start a new slate and get that win against Manchester United on their own turf. But it was like, I know we didn't put in a great performance against Tottenham Hotspur, but we had a good team. Well, I say a good team. We had a team that should have gone out there had the right selection been made, which in my opinion it wasn't. Had we gone out and gone for that game the other day, then I'm pretty confident we'd have been coming away with 3 points. Given the circumstances, I can totally understand why you're pleased with a point. The same goes for myself. I wouldn't say I'm over the moon with 1 point, but given it's a ground that we notoriously don't do well at, and given that we were awful for the context of the game and we did not deserve anything from it, I'll more than gladly take a point. But let's just take a look at that game briefly. It wasn't the team lineup that I expected. We saw a midfield pivot of Francis Coquelin and Mohamed El Nene. Why do you think Wenger opted to omit Granit Xhaka from the starting 11 and go with El Nene and Coquelin in midfield?
Personally, I think he just wanted a bit more steel in the central midfield, in the sense that whenever El Nene and Coquelin have played with each other in big games, like we saw a lot last season, when they've both played together, we haven't actually lost many games away from home. So I think he just wanted a bit of steel in the central midfield. It's a bit unfair on Granit Xhaka, because against Tottenham, I thought Granit Xhaka was our best player, but I think I can understand Wenger's thinking behind it. Like before the game, I wanted him to go with El Nene and Coquelin, so I agreed with him on that sense. But what we're finding now is, as good as they are defensively at sort of controlling the game, dictating it, if the creative players aren't going to do their job, there's literally no point of El Nene and Coquelin controlling the game, because there's no one to finish it off. And at times we looked a bit lost, especially when Sanchez, for the entire game, was coming so deep and he was playing almost like another holding midfielder, and there was no one in the box. So until Ox and Giroud came on, I just did not see where that goal was going to come from. I really didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, it is always good to be able to go to something like Old Trafford, Stamford Bridge, the Etihad, and line up with Coquelin and El Nene, in the sense that it is going to bring a bit more defensive steel to the midfield. But on the flip side, I think that Granit Xhaka is more than equipped to do the job that El Nene did at Old Trafford the other day, as well as that he offers that attacking threat going forward. His passing range is probably the best in the squad, bar Santi Cazorla. So it's with the absence of Santi Cazorla, we have absolutely no fluidity, no range of passing in the midfield, and that's what Granit Xhaka would have brought to the game. And I think that Manchester United side, with that defence of Phil Jones, Rojo, Valencia, and I can't quite recall who else played in the game, but I mean, we definitely had a chance to get at that United team, and I really don't think we took it. I think we lined up negatively by playing Coquelin and El Nene. Had we gone with maybe Aaron Ramsey in the centre of midfield alongside Granit Xhaka, would have had a better chance in this match. It maybe would have ignited Ozil a bit more. But Theo Walcott, he looked like his old self. He didn't have a particularly good game. Alexis Sanchez, you could tell that he was injured. Aaron Ramsey on that left-hand side, what did you make of his performance?
Well, as a proud Welshman and a proud Arsenal fan, that gives you a bit of a clue of the way I feel about Aaron Ramsey. I'm a big fan of him, but I think his performances recently have been border on being a joke. I would really go that far, but it's not his fault. Arsene Wenger is playing him in some really odd positions. He's not playing in his favourite position. He's not a right winger. He's certainly not a left winger. I don't know what on earth the thinking was behind that. I didn't know what the plan was. I was a bit confused why he was on the left. But again, I don't even think he can play in the central midfield, because he doesn't have the defensive discipline that someone like El Nene, someone like Xhaka, someone like Coquelin has. So it's like Wenger's trying to accommodate him in positions where he simply can't play. I think you want to get the best out of Ramsey, you play him in the number 10 role. But where does that leave Ozil? So it's a headache. But he's trying to accommodate Ramsey in awkward positions, like on the wing. It's not suiting his game, and he's becoming a scapegoat. And the fans are getting on his back. And if you can't play him in the number 10 role, don't play him at all, because he's getting hammered at the moment.
I personally feel like the thinking is, by playing Ramsey on either the left or the right hand side of the pitch, that he's going to interlink with Ozil, and those two are going to chop and change from either the left or the right hand side, playing in that central midfield role. But it just doesn't seem to work for us. They don't seem to have that chemistry that was so exhibited in the 2013-14 season. I mean, Ramsey worked so prolifically for us when he played alongside Mikel Arteta, had Ozil in front of him, had Theo Walcott in the side as well. I mean, it was a very exciting midfield and front line that we had in 2013-14, and you would hope that at some point we're going to see that form return. But I mean, it's been a couple of seasons now, and he's been nothing short of appalling at times. I do sincerely hope that we put him back in that central midfield role sooner rather than later. It's just frustrating when the Euros weren't too long ago, and he was tearing it up over there in France. He had an absolutely sensational tournament. And you've got to wonder why he's not playing like that for Arsenal. Arsene Wenger has got to be getting out the best out of this player, because he can offer a lot to the team on his day. He's a sensational midfielder when he's playing his correct position. And right now we do look very nullified in midfield. It's very easy to play against us in the middle of the park. But I mean, it is frustrating going away from home and not playing in the way that we want to, not to see the sort of performance that we saw against Chelsea, the 3-0 hammering, where I do think we could have gone to Old Trafford and put in a similar sort of performance had we gone for the game. There's only so many times I can emphasise that. But as I say, to come away with a point, how important was the impact of not just Olivier Giroud but Ox-Chamberlain in this game?
Well, Ox-Chamberlain for me is someone I've actually praised all season. I think he's been excellent all season. There was one game which I got annoyed with him, and that was the Tottenham game 2 weeks ago. Not necessarily for his performance, but the fact that his head just literally dropped after one mistake, and he capitulated when he came on against Spurs. And I think if you're capitulating in a North London derby, he's 23 years old. Your head can't drop in a game of that magnitude. This is a guy who scored in the North London derby. He knows what it means. And his head just completely went. That's the one time this season where I got annoyed with Chamberlain. In terms of his actual performances, he's been really good this season. And against Sunderland, that ball for Alexis Sanchez and the ball for Giroud the other day, it shows he can cross the ball to an excellent standard. But we need to see that more consistently. That's why I think he's got to start against PSG. He has to. He's got to start.
Okay, so on that note, let's take a look ahead to that game against our big rivals for that top position, Paris Saint-Germain, on Wednesday night. A game I'm very much looking forward to, a game of the Emirates under the lights. What would your team be going into that match?
Well, we already know Ospina is going to go in because he's the Champions League keeper. I think he's got to go with Jenkinson still, because I don't think Jenkinson did too much wrong. And if Bellerin is going to be injured for a month now, I think Jenkinson needs a run in the team. And left back, I would actually go with Kieran Gibbs. I think Monreal, even though I thought he was amazing against Spurs the other week, I think it's time for Gibbs to have a step in the team. I think apart from the Ludogorets game, Gibbs has looked pretty solid. So I'd try him on the left. The centre-back partnership, I think I'd have Mustafi and Koscielny. I mean, there's no reason to change that. And central midfield, I would go for Xhaka and Coquelin. I think, even though I think El Neni and Coquelin are good together, I just feel that a game at home, a game that we pretty much need to win if we want to finish top of the group. Xhaka, he's got a bit more risk to his game. And I think having him with Coquelin will offer a bit more going forward. And you can't exactly drop Coquelin after that performance against United. I thought Coquelin was outstanding. The one leader on the pitch who got us performing, and his passion really got us through that game against Man United. He made a brilliant tackle before we actually scored. And he rallies the team on, and we need characters. Right wing, I'd go with Oxlade-Chamberlain. You can't not play Chamberlain after what he did against United. I mean, if it wasn't for him, we would be going away with defeat. So he really, really helped us out. And I think Ozil in the number 10 role. And then it's a tough one because Alexis is injured. But do you think Wenger's got the balls to drop him? Like, if you imagine this, can you imagine Wenger saying to Alexis, right, you're clearly injured. I'm going to drop you for the PSG game. You know what Alexis will say? He'll make sure he's in the team. And that's where I think he's got more power than the manager. And I think Wenger's got to be strong, because if Alexis plays too much and he plays once every 3 days, with the injury he's got, he's going to aggravate it so much he could be out for a month or two, just like last season. But just for this one, I'd start him against PSG, but I would rest him against Bournemouth. And then up front, I'd go with Giroud. Again, he's the reason we went away with a point at Old Trafford. So he's got to start. All of this plan B talk is just, I don't agree with it. It's patronising. The guy has dug us out of a really big hole. I'd start him.
Yeah, on that note of Alexis Sanchez, it's a difficult one, considering that, you know, he despite being injured, was still one of our more influential players in the game at Old Trafford, and he is one of, you know, 2 or 3 world-class players in our squad. And this is one of the biggest games that we've played in quite well, in a couple of days actually, considering we had that game at Old Trafford. But this is a big opportunity for us to top the group. You know, a 0-0 would suffice in a way, but for us to really lay down a marker in this tournament, it's important that we get 3 points at home against the PSG side, which probably should have gotten 3 points against us when we went out to the Parc des Princes not too long ago. So I personally think it's a case of, if we can get Alexis Sanchez through at least until half-time, and presuming, let's hope we're 1-0 up at that point, then we can possibly take him off, opt for a more defensive option, perhaps try to change the game up that little bit more. So I think Alexis will undoubtedly start in a game of this magnitude. And I think it is worrying in a way, because you look back to last November and we lost, what was it, Coquelin, Cazorla and Alexis all at the same time for about 2 to 3 months. Yeah, and we're already missing Santi Cazorla, and we don't want to be in that position again, because that was an absolutely torrid time for us. That happened, and then we went on that, you know, we went on a fairly decent run actually, beat Man City, but then lost 4-0 on Boxing Day. I mean, this is just a horrible time of year for us, absolutely horrendous time. But I'm looking forward to that game on Wednesday night anyway, and I think you make a good case for Olivier Giroud starting this game. He has not really had a chance to, you know, show what he's about this season. He hasn't really started many games. I can't really recall one that he's actually started to recently, actually. But I mean, the way he came on against United, the swagger in his celebration, the arrogance, the frustration, the anger that he seems to embody. I mean, I think he's making a case for himself to be starting games. Every time he's come off the bench, he's looked like he's going to change the game, and he has changed the game in many instances. But maybe that's due to the fact that we're lining up in such a way that we disrupt teams, because they expect us to start with Alexis at striker. Then we go in with Olivier Giroud, and it completely disrupts their game plan. But I mean, it's a fantastic. I don't really want to talk about him as a plan B, because he's another option. You know, both Alexis and Giroud are options in our team. And when Danny Welbeck comes back, when Lucas Perez comes back, they're options as well. So we have got an abundance of options in that front line. But going into that game against PSG, I mean, are you sure you want to see Olivier Giroud start this game? Are you sure you don't want to return to the fluidity that Alexis, Iwobi and Theo Walcott have brought up top so far this season?
Do you know what? I think, yeah, I would still start Giroud, because people are saying that it was the impact that shocked United. But the way I look at it, if Giroud had come on earlier, or even had started, that United defence was there for the taking. Like you touched on it a couple of minutes ago. That United defence, I've never seen a weaker United defence in my life. And that goal we scored late on, just think how many more opportunities we could have had to do that if Giroud and Ox had started from the kickoff. But I take your point that there is the element of confusion, and the fact that teams don't see it coming. They're used to us starting with Walcott, players like Iwobi, Sanchez, you know, the false number 9, the fluidity. And it is causing a lot of confusion with a lot of teams, especially Sunderland, where a game, it looked like when Sunderland got the penalty and scored, you didn't know where the goal was going to come from, and you were just crying out for Giroud. And Sunderland were shocked, because we were used to defending against, you know, Sanchez up front. And then you've got the big man, Giroud, and it's just the defenders, they don't know how to deal with him. He's unplayable. And I would still start with Giroud, but I take your point that in games where Sanchez plays up front, bringing Giroud off the bench will cause a lot of confusion in other teams that we come up against.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm inclined to agree with you that I want to see Olivier Giroud starting this match. Maybe we could opt to play Theo Walcott on that right-hand side, Olivier Giroud through the middle, and Alexis on the left. I mean, that could work really well for us. And it's not something that we've seen in those players' tenures at Arsenal. We haven't seen those three combine all too often. So that could be certainly exciting to watch. And it would give us a whole load of options up there. So yes, it's certainly an exciting game going into. But one player that I think has gone under the radar in recent weeks is Alex Iwobi. Since he played the game against Tottenham Hotspur and didn't have the best of performances, should have scored in that game. He was omitted from the starting 11 in the game against Manchester United, probably because we wanted to play a bit more defensively. Do you think he's got an opportunity to start in this game on Wednesday night?
I think, yeah, there's a possibility. I think with obviously Alexis and the situation that he's in and the injury he has, I think if Wenger's brave enough to drop Alexis, then Iwobi would probably be a decent option on the left wing. But Iwobi is such a young player. You don't want to be too harsh to him. But I think since the Burnley game, Iwobi hasn't been good enough. But he's a young player. But having said that, if he's playing on the left wing for Arsenal Football Club, you've got to treat him like a man. And if he wants to get a regular spot in the team, he's got to go back to the form that he showed at the start of the season. Because for a while now, I expect the Tottenham game was the icing on the cake for me. I think he's been in need of a rest, and I think I would still leave him out. But if Alexis is not gonna play, Iwobi is an option. But I think the sensible option would be to play him against Southampton in the Cup. There's no pressure on him, because the fans were getting on his back against Spurs. And for a young player like Iwobi, you don't want the crowd getting on your back. You don't want you to have your confidence knocked so much that it's affecting your form. So a game against Southampton in the Cup will be a no-brainer for him. You know, it's not much pressure on him, and he can express himself. And if he impresses in that game, then he can return back into the starting lineup in the Premier League. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think with someone like Alex Iwobi, who is just 20 years old, let's not forget that there are going to be periods, over the next couple of years where he will have bad patches. There will be a couple of months where he won't be playing to the best of his ability. But God knows how many times we've seen that with the likes of Chamberlain, Walcott. It's just a case of getting through this spell. I'm still incredibly confident that he's going to fulfil his potential at Arsenal Football Club. It's just a lack of confidence, because we saw when he first came into the squad, the goal we got against Everton, the goal that he scored against Watford. I mean, he's got quality in abundance. It's just a case of putting the ball in the back of the net. It doesn't help that he hasn't scored for us this season. His morale is pretty low, but I mean, the way he plays is absolutely second to none at times. Such a skillful, such a delight to watch at times. So it'll be interesting to see who lines up in that game on Wednesday night. But looking at the opposition, I don't really know a lot about Paris Saint-Germain. I knew going into that game when we played them away from home that they weren't in the best of form, and I don't believe that they're doing particularly well in Ligue 1 at the moment. So I think that we've got a very good opportunity to get a convincing win in this game. And let's not forget that they've also got Angel Di Maria missing for this match, I believe, who could be ruled out for a hamstring injury. So a very good opportunity that we've got here. How much do you know about Paris Saint-Germain heading into the match?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't watch any of the French league, so I'm not going to pretend that I know about how Paris Saint-Germain have been doing, but I know a lot about their players. And I think, for me, the one we've got to look out for, the two we've got to look out for, I'd probably say Verratti and Cavani. Those are the two players who I feel can cause us a threat. Verratti has the capabilities of controlling a football match to a world-class standard. Let's get that straight. And Cavani is an out-and-out. He's a natural goal scorer. Didn't show that against us in the first game, but on his day, he's got the ability to hurt you. So I think those two players are the danger men. I mean, you've got Lucas Moura as well. I think he's still there. But with Di Maria out, that is a big bonus for us. Even though he didn't impress at United, he's a top player, and they're going to miss him a lot. So we've just got to try and capitalize on that as good as possible.
Yeah, the one thing that does worry me going into this game is the amount of opportunities that Cavani had away from home in France. I mean, he had so many chances, and PSG could have been about 3-4-0 up before half time. And I know that was early days in terms of the Koscielny-Mustafi partnership, but I mean, let's be realistic for a moment. As good as those two look on paper, there have been times where Mustafi or Koscielny have both been at fault in terms of individual errors. I mean, at times they have made some absolutely shocking decisions. I mean, how vital is it that the defence as a unit play well in this game? And let's not forget that we're going to have, quite a reshuffle with David Ospina coming in. So he's going to have to be commanding the centre halves. And then you've got Cole Jenks on that right-hand side as well. I mean, it's going to be difficult to keep a clean sheet in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, about the central defence, just touching on that, I completely agree with you, because when they first came into the team, I think until the first international break, no, the second international break, sorry, until then, the first 6 games they played with each other, I thought they were outstanding. But when they both came back from the international break, from the Swansea game onwards, they have both looked so shaky in the central defence. But because Mustafi is a new player and he impressed so much in the first 6 games, we've sort of tried our best to put a positive swing on it. But the reality is that central defence has been exposed on numerous occasions in the last 6 games. But they're a new centre back pairing, so we've got to be patient. But I'm hearing fans saying that this is the best centre back partnership we've had in 10 years. I mean, in all fairness, it's November. I think we need to calm down in the sense that they're not going to be the finished article yet. From what I've seen in the last 6 games, especially against Spurs, they were both torn apart at times. Against Spurs, we were very, very lucky not to lose the game. Against United, I saw improvements in both of them. So I'm hoping now that against PSG on Wednesday, they've gone back to their best, and we can start to see the very best of the Mustafi and Koscielny partnership.
Yeah, I mean, on that point as well, I know it might sound a little bit ludicrous, but Rob Holding, that played so well at the start of the season, bar that game against Liverpool where he was lining up alongside Callum Chambers, who in fairness didn't really help him out in that game. The game against Leicester, I thought he looked phenomenal. The game against Watford, I thought he played really well. In the game against Notts Forest and Reading in the EFL Cup, we've kept clean sheets. So, I mean, it is important for probably Mustafi more than Koscielny to remember that there are players in reserve that are waiting to break through if Mustafi is going to have a run of poor games. And I'm not saying Mustafi is playing particularly poorly. It's just rash decision-making at times. But I think, we're quick to forget that Mustafi is only 24 as well. So, I mean, in terms of a centre-back, he's still got a bit of development to go. And alongside Koscielny, he's got a fantastic mentor alongside him. And that's, in my opinion, going to be one of the best... it's not there yet, but it is going to be one of the best centre-back partnerships to grace Arsenal Football Club. For hopefully, I mean, I've got no doubts that Koscielny can go into his hopefully mid to late 30s. So, it's a very exciting time to look at our back line as well, especially when you weigh in that Hector Bellerin has just signed a new 6.5-year contract with Arsenal. And on that note, how pleased are you that 21-year-old Hector Bellerin has committed his long-term futures to the club, and this contract goes on until the age of 28 for him?
Do you know what? I couldn't be happier. I haven't stopped smiling all day because it shows. Obviously, I'm delighted that a player of Hector Bellerin's calibre is staying with us, but I feel like the club is growing now, because I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, Hector Bellerin might have been offloaded by our board, and we might have cashed in on him. But I think we're at a stage now where the club is clearly looking to move forward, and we want to keep players of this calibre. All we need to do now is get Ozil and Sanchez to sign new deals. But with regards to Bellerin, I think it's fantastic the amount of loyalty shown to the club, because in all fairness, he could get into any club in world football. Let's be honest, he could get into Barcelona, he could get into Real Madrid, he's that good. But he's chosen to stay with us because he's very grateful. He's clearly grateful for the opportunity Wenger gave him. And he's saying, no, I want to grow as a footballer. I want to pay back the faith that this club showed with me, and I want to give them many more years. And I think he can give us a lot more trophies, and I'm delighted. It's amazing news. Brilliant.
It is really exciting to see a player of Hector Bellerin's quality put pen to paper on a deal which you would hope would last until his late 20s. I mean, he's a fantastic footballer, and I think I would hope that Ozil and Sanchez would look at that and see a player of his talent committing his long-term future to the club, and I would hope that they'd take note of that and sign on themselves, considering that they're coming into their late 20s as well now. But it's definitely exciting on that front, and I mean, as I say, he's definitely one of the best players that Arsenal have produced in the past 5 years, and he's had 5.5 years at the club already. Only 21 years of age. The future is so incredibly bright for him, and you make a fantastic point that he would probably get into any club in world football at the moment. And I think the one thing that we can take from this is, even though he has committed his long-term future to the club, how much the contracts actually mean these days. That's the thing. I mean, even if he was to leave, let's hope not for Manchester City, but if in, say, 4 or 5 years' time Barcelona did come sniffing in for him, at least we would, in a way, be able to get a bit of money back on him. We would be able to cash in a sense, but hopefully it won't come to that. It's great to see. I mean, the thing that I noticed with Hector Bellerin is he comes across as a lot more of a nice person than Sam Nasri, RVP, all that. Like, he just seems like a nicer person. And it's important that we have players which have just got good morale and good support and good loyalty to the club. And Hector Bellerin is a fantastic example for any even younger players coming through. So plaudits certainly have to go to Hector Bellerin in that sense. But relating back to this game against PSG on Wednesday night, what would your score prediction be for the game?
Score prediction, I'm going to go for 2-0. I think we'll keep a clean sheet. That's not me disrespecting PSG. I've just got a feeling we'll do it. I think the team getting a point at Old Trafford will give those players a massive boost. I mean, I thought when Mata scored, I thought that would give us a boost, but it obviously didn't. But I think the fact that we came away with a draw, and it's another game where we've come away with an undeserved point or an undeserved 3 points. And I think we should be back to our best against PSG, because PSG in their own league, I think I looked at the table earlier, I think a third. So that they're a team who, again, they're not in a huge good amount of form. And they scored a late goal in the last game in their Champions League game against Basel. So they're a team that isn't the finished article. And I think if we can beat PSG, it will really send out a statement. I'm not too fussed about finishing top of the group, because at the end of the day, if we want to really win the Champions League, we've got to play against the big teams at some point.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, though, I think it would just, because you could say that for the amount of years that we played in the Champions League, but to finish top, I think it would not only give the team a sense of relief in a way, but it would, just the chance to get to the quarterfinals and then go on to the semi-finals, just to have that easier run, just because you don't want to get to February, March time and we find ourselves in a position where, we've got Bayern Munich home and away, then we've got Manchester United in the cup away from home or whatever, and we don't want to be falling back into that lull of a couple of seasons ago where we'd be out of every single competition by mid-March. That's not a position we want to be in. So for me, I think it's essential that we top the group, especially, whilst we're in such a strong position to do so.
Yeah, when you put it like that, yeah. I mean, if we've got a tough game against Barcelona, then you've got United the next day. I mean, the next 3 days, it's not ideal. But I just feel the reason why it will be big if we beat PSG is because it will be a statement. Because over the 2 legs, we would have drawn 1-1 away at PSG and won the home game. So if that was the equivalent of a first round and second round, we would have gone through. So it shows that that a team like PSG, we are getting the upper hand of. And even if we finish top of the group, we might still play against a tough team.
They are a lot of those teams like Juventus, Real Madrid. I mean, they're second in their group at the moment. So I think that would just be unbelievably typical if that were to happen.
Oh, tell me about it. But the thing is, I don't want us to be going to Basel, and actually, wait, no. If we beat, the game decides it, doesn't it? It finishes top of the group. So the Basel game.
If we win, we should finish top. Yeah, unless something catastrophic happens in Basel.
Yeah. Well, I want to go to Basel not needing to win anything. That'll be. So if we can beat PSG, then we can afford to sort of rest our players, and against Basel. So let's just get the game out of the way on Wednesday. No nonsense. Let's just win the game and top the group, and we don't have to worry about the Basel game.
Yeah, I think it's important as well with a game like this, just to get back to winning ways and play good football as well, because we have seen a bit of a lull where you had the game against Tottenham, where we didn't play particularly well. We had the international break following that, which I don't think anyone was particularly interested in. And then we had the game the other day where we played absolutely abysmally. So it's vital that we get back to playing good football, get a win against PSG, and then following that, we've got that game against Bournemouth at home. So, I mean, if we could, just win this game against PSG 1-0, put in a solid performance, and then I would absolutely love to see us hammer Bournemouth about 3, 4, 5-0 if we could, just to get morale, just to get spirits up within the team. It'd be fantastic if we could do that. But my personal score prediction for this game, that's a difficult one. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Arsenal. I do think we will concede, but I do think we've got enough firepower and enough options up front to put a couple past PSG and hopefully get a confidence boosting win heading into a couple more games against the likes of Bournemouth and Southampton following that as well. But now it's time to get into your questions. So the first one I've got from at NUU0023 says, should Giroud get the nod to start on Wednesday?
Well, like I touched on earlier, yes. I think he's got to start. I think same with Ox-Chamberlain. I mean, just for what they did against Man United alone, I just feel that when the 11 men that started were on the pitch, we created nothing. When those two came on, they've effectively got us this draw. So how can you not start both of them? It's like they'll both feel so aggrieved if they don't start. So I think they've got to start. I think Giroud especially.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that would worry me ever so slightly if we were to start Giroud and Ox is that in the past we have seen players come on off the bench, make an impact in a game, then we've started them and they've not lived up to the hype that they promised in the previous match. So I'd be very open to a multitude of options up front. I mean, I'd be very inclined to possibly go with Walcott on the right, Alexis on the left, Ozil through the middle, and Giroud up front. I think that's something that I think could work dividends for us. But I'd also be very inclined to go with Walcott, Iwobi, Alexis as well. But then there's so many options, and I do think Ox deserves a place in this team because he has shown this season when he's been given a chance that he is one of our most lethal options going forward. I mean, he's looking stronger, he's looking physically more powerful, and his crossing, for every 100 crosses that he makes, one of them is normally perfect, and normally that results in a goal. So thankfully, he can keep that record up. But the next question in from Polish Guna is Gibbs or Monreal, and I think I know your answer on this one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Monreal, his best game in the last couple of months, I think his best game was Tottenham. And he played well in the international break as well. I heard he scored a goal for Spain, didn't he?
Yeah.
But for me, over the 2 months, I just feel for a while, Monreal has looked a bit shaky. I mean, I was at the Swansea and Middlesbrough game a month ago, and Adama Traore gave him a torrid time, and Barrow for Swansea gave him a torrid time as well. And I just feel that. And again, Valencia the other day gave Monreal a torrid time. So I think maybe I'd change it around a bit because we were so poor against United. I think I'd make a couple of changes. So yeah, I would personally start with Gibbs.
Yeah, no, I can see you thinking it. I mean, to be honest, I'd probably be happy with either of them if they started. I mean, I'd probably be inclined to go with Kieran Gibbs as well. There's a lot to like about him. He's pacey, he's energetic, he's athletic. He's, in my opinion, better going forward. He can link up well with whether we start on that left-hand side, whether it be Alexis, Iwobi, whoever. So for me, yeah, I would be inclined to agree to go with Kieran Gibbs. But the next question in from Mohammed is, please tell me what Ramsey offers. Apart from half a good season in 13-14, he's done nothing. Very brutal statement there.
Well, I think all you have to do is look at the Euros and look at how well he did in the number 10 role with Allen and Ledley behind him. When Aaron Ramsey has got the license to go forward without any sort of defensive responsibility, he is a threat. But like I touched on it earlier, for me, he's not a central midfielder. He hasn't got the defensive discipline, even though he can defend very well. He's a great tackler. He can defend. He chooses not to when he's in the central midfield because he's so forward-minded. All he cares about is going forward and trying to get a goal. And that leaves us susceptible down the other end. And our defence gets exposed. That leaves us with only one more central midfielder to cover. And for me, if you want to get the best out of Aaron Ramsey, you play him in the number 10 role. But it's similar to Paul Pogba. I think it's a similar situation. I mean, Paul Pogba is a great tackler, great defensively, but he's so forward-minded. He knows that he's clearly better going forward, and he just wants to make something happen. And that eliminates the defensive discipline. So I think in players like that, you've just got to play them more further forward.
Yeah, on that note as well, we saw United line up in a 4-3-3 the other day to accommodate Paul Pogba, and he played in that central attacking midfield role, and I thought he ran the midfield at times. So I mean, realistically, when Ozil was in the team and when we've got Aaron Ramsey as well, Ramsey is not going to get ahead of Mesut Ozil. There's not a hope in hell for him in terms of that. So it's a difficult situation. It really is a difficult one. But then again, you look back to 13-14 and the way he played with Ozil and Giroud, and you just wonder, why can't he replicate that? Just why can't he do it? So I mean, I'd be inclined to give him one last chance in this game against PSG on Wednesday night. And on that note, at Wenger's Way has tweeted in saying, what's your preferred pairing of central midfielders for Wednesday night?
Yeah, I would go with Xhaka and Coquelin. But just to touch on your on the point about Ramsey, I think on the 13-14 season, he was incredible. I think the reason why he hasn't replicated that form, I think it's down to a bit of arrogance. I think he's
yeah, I agree.
He knows how well he did in that 13-14 season, and I think when he came back from that summer, of 2014, it's as if he came back thinking, right, I'm the man. I'm going to shoot from 30 yards. You know, I am the guy. And it's almost led to arrogance, and slowly, that is just, it's been forgotten. I've forgotten that season because he's been so poor recently, and he just needs to go back to where he was in 2013, you know, with a little bit of vulnerability. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but he literally thinks he's like, I think it's got to his head a bit, and he just needs to go back to being level-headed, you know?
Yeah, no, I can totally see where you're coming from there. I mean, he was sensational in that season, but he's not in a position to be arrogant in the slightest. He may walk into the Wales side, but there's no way that he's guaranteed a place in this Arsenal starting 11. I mean, the case for Jack Wilshere, a fully fit Jack Wilshere, getting in ahead of Aaron Ramsey in this Arsenal team is certainly one that's up for debate. I mean, if we'd have held on to Jack Wilshere, I'd be very inclined to be playing him ahead of Ramsey this moment in time. But then again, I don't want to judge Ramsey too early on into the season. Let's not forget that he was injured for a couple of months, and he has been playing out of position. So let's not be too rash on his case. But the next question in from Patrick Machak says, do you think we can really win the title this year, or is it just the same old Arsenal every year?
I think judging on that performance against United, no, I honestly, I can't see it at all. Judging on the result and on paper, the resilience, getting a late goal, it's what people who want to win the title do. When you're not playing well, to come out with a point. I mean, honestly, I'm going to ask you from your perspective. When it was 1-0 to United, did you see a goal?
No, I thought it was game over. I thought it was done.
Yeah, I thought it was game over. You know, when Rojo got the header and they almost made it 2-0, I thought, do you know what? Let's not make this embarrassing. Let's just.
It could have been 3 or 4 to them, easy.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that we've come away with a point, and against Spurs, they outplayed us. I hate to say that. I hate to say Spurs are outplaying us, but they dominated for the third derby in a row at the Emirates. They dominated us, and we were very, very lucky not to lose that game. So the fact that we've come away from both of those games unbeaten, that shows still. That really shows a lot still. But on the performance, I mean, if performances like that carry on, no, I can't see us winning the title at all.
I mean, I think just isolating that game against Man United, it's just a case of it's an awful ground for us to go to. It's against a manager that we've got an awful record against. To come away with a point, I mean, it's a results game at the end of the day, and I mean, it's fantastic to get that point and show that bit of grit, that determination. But we do have to buck up our ideas and put in better performances. If we can play the way that we did against Basel at home for every game of the season, then there's no doubt in my mind that we could walk this league. But not getting in over my head. Chelsea look fantastic at the moment. Spurs, they got that last gasp win against West Ham United, coming from 2-1 down. They look like a different outfit this season. I mean, Man City, they got that win at Selhurst Park. Liverpool look sensational when going forward. So I mean, it's going to be an extremely tight, tense, and stressful season, and we're only in November. So it's going to be very telling, this campaign. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it pans out. But on to what I believe is the final question from @holy_cabal. Says, is signing Perez a gain or a loss at the moment?
I wouldn't say it's a loss, because I think from what I've seen of Perez, I think he's done well. He's got a couple of assists. He got a couple of goals against Forest. I think his stats have been good. He's done well. But the actual signing of Perez, I didn't get from day one. I mean, we wanted a striker. We were clearly in for a striker. And in all fairness, Lucas Perez looks like an attacking midfielder. He looks like a carbon copy. Obviously, I don't think he's a better version, but I think he's very similar to Juan Mata in the way that he plays. He doesn't look a striker. And I don't know why we got ourselves another attacking midfielder and let go of someone like Jack Wilshere. It's just, I don't understand it, but he's not a failure. I think give him a bit of time. We've got him now, so when he gets back from injury, we've just got to give him as much confidence as possible and hope he can deliver.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit rash to say that he could potentially be a loss at the moment, because we've had him only a couple of months really. Whenever he has played, he hasn't set the world alight, but he's done fine. I mean, he's played against the likes of Notts Forest, Ludogorets. And he has bagged himself a couple of assists. He's scored scored against the likes of Forest, which I know isn't the most glamorous of opposition. But I'm sure if we were to start him in a game against this game against Bournemouth in a weekend, I wouldn't have too much of a problem with that. I think he's a very useful player to have. He's another option. He's different to Alexis Sanchez in his game. He's different to Olivier Giroud. He's different to Danny Welbeck. Again, I think it was. I wouldn't say it was a panic buy in the summer, but maybe it was a bit of quick thinking in terms of that. He wasn't top on our list, but we still needed an addition with Danny Welbeck being out. Had Welbeck been fit, then I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have signed him. But it's just it's just typical that he's gotten injured as well. But he should be back hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. A very useful player to have. He only cost us 15 million as well, and whenever he has played, he's looked fairly decent. So on that note, I'd say he's a minor gain. Hopefully he'll get a few more chances in this Arsenal team. But I'm going to wrap it up there. Joe, thank you ever so much for coming on tonight, mate. Please, if there's anything you've got to say, please do let us know. No?
Oh, it's to me?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's nothing from that. I think we've mentioned everything. I just hope we can beat PSG now. I hope we're not jinxing it with our predictions. Let's just hope the boys can put on a good performance. Yeah,
let's hope so. Certainly, loving the positivity from Joe there. What am I saying? I'm already getting so excited for this game on Wednesday night. Anyway, guys, please do leave your score predictions in the comments box below. Thank you ever so much for tuning in to AFC Stuff tonight. This has been the preview for the game against Paris Saint-Germain on Wednesday. And as always, we'll be seeing you very, very soon. Thank you very much.